In our world lead, we are now more than 2 months into the Iran war, a military operation that the Trump administration initially told us would only last 4 to 6 weeks and constantly reminded us was ahead of schedule. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was on Capitol Hill earlier today and was asked about that.
I would remind you and this group that we're 2 months in to an effort. And many congressional Democrats, as I pointed out, want to declare defeat 2 months in. Iraq took how many years? Afghanistan took how many years? And they were nebulous missions that people went along with. This is different.
With us now, Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan. She's on the Senate Armed Services Committee. She's also a former CIA analyst who served 3 tours in Iraq. So, Senator, what's your take on the clip we just ran from Secretary Hegseth?
Well, I think a theme throughout the hearing today was that the secretary wanted, to have the world be the way he painted it rather than what the average person can understand. The Pentagon president has taken military action in 10 different places in his first 15 months, more than any president in U.S. history, and has really become a foreign policy president. But until now, until the Iran war, a lot of that military action, it hasn't really been felt at home. This one on Iran with the Strait of Hormuz closed, like the average person feels it 10 times a day when they drive by a gas station and go and fill up. So he was trying to kind of wave his hands and say, it's all good and we're kicking butt and we're winning and we want that. Like, I want, no matter how I disagree with some of the ways we got into this war, I want us and our military to come out of this safely and winning. But he was trying to sort of convince people that somehow it was someone else's fault. It's all bad press when in reality things are great. Not when gas is $4.99 a gallon.
Yeah. The war started February 28th, as you know. We're right at 60 days since that happened. I'm not sure if the War Powers Act requires the president to congressional authorization for continuing the military operation 60 days after it began or 60 days after the president notified Congress. But either way, I want you to take a listen to what Secretary Hegseth said about that today.
We are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire.
Is that accurate?
Well, I know who doesn't think it's accurate. Susan Collins, who flipped her vote today and voted with Democrats on the war power resolution. Senator John Curtis wrote an op-ed a few weeks ago saying if we get past a certain date, I'm going to be a yes on pushing back on with the war powers resolution. So, I've obviously been voting on these regularly, but it appears my Republican colleagues see it differently. And look, until my Republican colleagues decide that they want to kind of act as a separate branch of government and provide just a natural check and balance on the White House, he's going to keep moving, right? He's going to keep doing what he's doing. But I just thought that was interesting that for the first time in 8 weeks or so, a Republican switched their vote because of that 60-day clock.
You asked Secretary Hegseth about the possibility that President Trump might order members of the military to the polls during this year's midterm elections, possibly to seize ballots or voting machines, as he has expressed a desire to do in the past. Here's a little part of that exchange.
Yet another gotcha hypothetical, which is your specialty.
It's not. In 2020, he's the president, your boss, the guy you're performing for right now, told the journalists this year that he wished he signed that executive order to your predecessor. Tell the American people, will you deploy the uniformed military to our polls to collect voter rolls or machines?
Are you accusing me of performing? Because you're performing for cable news right now. I've never been ordered to do anything illegal, and I won't.
What's your reaction to that exchange?
Well, my reaction is he should have just said very clearly, look, we've never had uniformed military deployed to our polls during World War II, right after 9/11, 2 months after 9/11. Like, we've never done it in our history, so I do not believe there's any reason why the active duty military would ever be deployed to the polls. Law enforcement can handle whatever comes up. I think if he had just said that very clearly, and again, if I believed that he understood that his role is not just loyalty to the president, but actually to protect the institution we all care about, which is the uniformed military, then I think we would be in a different place. But he just can't, I'm very aware the whole hearing that he knows President Trump is watching. He wants to make sure not to anger him, but he's also the guy in charge of our military. So to me, if he could just be clear about these things and protect the image, the brand, the important values of the military, then we'd be in a different place.
On another matter, you and Republican Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio have introduced legislation that would ban the importation of Chinese vehicles, Chinese auto parts, Chinese vehicle software. The Secretary of Commerce, the Department of Commerce, already has a rule restricting such imports. So why do you think a law is necessary?
Yeah, so we like that rule that the Secretary of Commerce has continued. It started, I think, in Trump 1, continued under Biden and strengthened, and now we're just trying to enshrine that in law. And the real reason why we're doing it is because the president has not ruled out allowing Chinese companies to set up shop in the United States and allowing Chinese vehicles to come and be sold here. And in response to all this bipartisan attention this week, the president put out a statement saying, look, maybe not having the cars sold here, but we're open to making deals and having China set up their own plants here the way Toyota does. I got a real problem with that as a national security person and certainly as a Michigander, where this industry is strongest. So I think we just wanted to send a bipartisan signal ahead of the summit that the president is going to on May 14th with the president of China. Just do not give away the farm. Do not be so desperate for a deal that you allow, the camel's nose under the tent. You allow the Chinese in. They are not playing on a level playing field. They do use those cars to collect full motion video on our military bases, our infrastructure. They can be hacked. So I think we just wanted to send that signal before the summit.
All right. Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan, thank you so much.
Thank you.